Yalocha. Lina Lagaki Mulatelo Garamutwala, and I work for the Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency, where we are bringing you this episode of the Sedfa Podcast. South Africa commemorates Human Rights Day on the 21st of March. The day is linked to March 1960, Sharpeville massacre, where over 69 people died and even more were injured, and they were protesting against past laws. The day has become an iconic date in our country's calendar where we celebrate Human Rights Day. As such, the Bill of Rights is contained in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, and it guarantees us a bunch of fundamental rights, right? Freedom of movement, freedom of equity, freedom of association, and a bunch of others that you can go and find out about. But for the purposes of our conversation today, we are concerned with the right to freedom of trade, occupation, and profession, which states that, and I just want to make sure I get it right, every citizen has the right to choose their trade, occupation, or profession freely. The practice of a trade, occupation, or profession may be regulated by law. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? You should be able to set up a business anywhere in the country. You have an idea, you get supported, you succeed. But in our engagement with our audience online, we have established that it's not that easy to exercise that right in South Africa, right? And as part of preparing for this conversation with the team, we were going back and forth. How do you approach human rights and link them with entrepreneurship rights, right? And we settled on an approach that looks at entrepreneurship rights from the MSME perspective. What we did is we threw out a question on social media and we asked our audience, what is the biggest challenge you face in exercising your entrepreneurial rights and growing your business in South Africa? That's a mouthful, right? Thankfully, I don't have to unpack those insights alone. Across me, I have Coach Ntando. How are you?
I'm just dazzled the intro nje, thinking, so one day now I'm going to have to be this professional.
Are you not in your approach? I've watched your stuff. You are though.
You know how this intro would have started with me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm just chilling around. Let's go.
Well, that is your approach.
I'm listening. No. I mean, it's a compliment. I'm listening and I'm really saying, this is amazing. Well prepared, very poised.
While we're at it, maybe use some of that fancy English to just detail for us the work that you do in the entrepreneurship development space. And we also know that you're not a stranger to the Sedfa family, right? So also outline there. Oh, tell us about that.
I say I'm a Sedfa Success Story, and I don't say it as a joke. I wrote this book just over 5 years ago. And the book, yes, that book, it tells a bit about my story. Nah? And in that story, I lost my business and had to start over from scratch. Basically, how I started from zero, I was halfway through my MBA. So I wasn't done, but I knew enough about business to consult. And I registered as a service provider. So the first gig that practically launched me, my first 10,000 when I was bouncing back, was from Sedfa.
Nice!
And that's where I started working and worked with multiple branches, started with the KZN branches and then got to expand across the country. And what I realized is a lot of lessons that got to make it to the book, but I got to coach entrepreneurs and started to see things like many entrepreneurs were losing their businesses. Some were struggling to grow their businesses. Some had been in business for years, but you started business 5 years ago, you're making 10,000. 5 years later, you're still around there and struggling to really break through that 10,000. For some people, it would be 100 or whatever it was. I started to see those patterns and then got into coaching. My first group coaching program was in the Free State. And I'm always grateful for that one because it was the Sedfa branch in Bethlehem. When I got that job, it was a coaching program. I got there, fired up. It was a women coaching program.
Oh.
I am super motivated. I think I'm coaching. And then the operations manager calls me aside after the session and said, Ntate, let's talk. You are not coaching, you are training.
Oh.
And I think, oh, okay. It bothered me because I didn't know what she was talking about. Now I'm bothered because I don't know what the difference is, but this seems like important feedback. So I just said, okay, I hear you. I'll improve. You need the money, so
You gotta humble yourself to the client.
I'll figure it out. So I went and just searched this coaching thing. Found a number of coaching programs, got into study coaching different because I'm extra like that. I studied 3 different coaching schools of thought.
Okay.
Neuro-linguistics programming being one, person-centered coaching being another. I did dabble on CBT, but these are the 2 main ones that I like. NLP, ontology, and person-centered coaching. And then went back, improved my coaching, got amazing results in that program.
Nice.
And from that program, got called to another province, got called again in the Free State. And by now, I've done 6 provinces, group coaching programs.
Nice.
Including Gauteng. So that's my journey into coaching. And that's why I say I'm a Sedfa success story, because I was one of the service providers that got to really start and grow in the system. Got to develop in the system. And part of the assistance I got were from practitioners, operations managers, branch managers that would take the time to give me feedback. Think this would work better if you do this. Our clients would benefit from this. Do you know how to do this? And every time these questions would come up, I'd say I'll look into it, I'll research it, go figure it out, come back, practice it, and see that it's working for the client. So I literally grew up in the system.
Nice.
And I'm not joking when I say I'm part of the furniture. Any branches will recognize this face.
So you do all this work as a coach across the country. In the process, you built your own platform. You are proud to bring it there. And the vision is to simplify the journey to success for entrepreneurs and those who aspire to be.
Yo, you even know the vision. Yes. That is the vision behind the podcast. With the coaching programs, I talked to a really smart entrepreneur, smart young entrepreneur, and he was telling me, he challenged me in 2 ways. He said, Coach, your resources are here. Your money is here. Yeah, I felt like...
Bring that down.
Your resources are here. Your money is here. And what he meant, because he was saying it before I had started the podcast, he said, I know you've got cameras. I know you've got mics. I know you've got entrepreneurs that you've worked with that typically would watch stuff that you do, but you have nothing out there on social media. And it's an opportunity to make money that you're not leveraging. I know you've got knowledge and classes that you teach on financial literacy, but Dololo book, where is it?
Yeah.
So it offended me at first. Oh, it was painful to hear. But I processed it and thought, man, this could be really feedback that changes my life. So after that,
action.
Yeah, I went, wrote the book, took it out. It sold over 2,400 copies now.
Nice.
And then the other thing that he was saying was, you have too much attrition in the way that you work.
Attrition.
Yes.
Let's just say that English of mine is not that.
I know.
What is that?
I know some big words too. So what he meant was, you go coaching, you talk to 30 people in a room, but when the door closes, when the program ends, do they ever have anything to refer back and remember you by? And it was nothing. So he was saying, over the past 10 years, you've probably coached like 1,000 people. None of them remember that you exist except the 10 that probably took your number and became friends with you. Right?
Yeah.
And it was so true. I thought, man, you're so offensive, but you're so right.
A real life case of the truth hurts.
You see? And then from that, I realized I do need to start a podcast. There was anxiety around it first because, look, cameras are scary, man.
It can be intimidating.
So it took me a while until I met 2 friends after that conversation that challenged me to do it. And I launched the podcast with that vision to say, I want to get rid of the attrition. If I'm in a coaching program and we're talking about pricing and we're talking about investments and we're talking about finance, I want to say, by the way, we're ending here, but there's 1, 2, 3 that you can find on the podcast. Just check it out. And the good thing is the podcast they can watch over and over again. So you could find a lesson that you like, you could always go back to it. If I'm in class, no matter how well you enjoy that session, most of it you're going to forget. But it's done. When it's done, it's done, right? You only have what you took as notes and what you implemented. So if we were there for 4 hours, that probably is 30 minutes of what you took out. But if it's on a podcast, you can always go back and reference.
Absolutely.
If something touched you, go back, use it. A year later, think you ask yourself, am I using that information, and go back and check again.
Yes, and that's the great thing, right? You can always reference that information.
You can reference back over and over. The lifetime of a YouTube video is like unlimited.
That's it.
So I created that with that vision to say, let's simplify the journey for my clients at first, because they encouraged me to be doing this. But then there's many entrepreneurs out there who benefit from this.
And just like the entrepreneurs that we have on the Sedfa Podcast, we are hoping that, they can benefit from this conversation as well.
I hope so too.
I started the intro by alluding to the fact that as part of preparing for this conversation with you, we asked our online audience a question: what is the biggest challenge you face in exercising your entrepreneurial rights and growing your business in South Africa? And we took the approach of a poll, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram stories, and we gave them predetermined kind of answers, and they kind of had to rank. And the options were limited access to funding, regulations and red tape, high cost of business premises, and limited market to access. I know those are topics that you can talk potentially endlessly about, right? So we're just going to get into each one of them, right? The biggest takeout: entrepreneurs, they want funding. That is the biggest takeout.
If I were to guess as well, even before you tell me the results, I'd probably say number one there is money. It is number one.
That's it.
On every platform.
Yes, that's it. Across LinkedIn, Insta Stories, and on X, there were. On Twitter, it was almost like 70%. On Instagram, it was like 54%. So on all the platforms, it was more than half. So entrepreneurs are looking for funding. But the agency that we work for example, the Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency, has some interventions in place, right? It provides non-financial services, financial services, lending, and all sorts of like targeted interventions like the Youth Challenge and TREP. But we also know that in the lending space, the biggest place where entrepreneurs can get money is through loans, right? But to access those loans, there are barriers. They have record-keeping issues. They don't have collateral. How do entrepreneurs navigate that, Coach?
You put so many layers in there.
Unpack that.
My mind is in 10 places right now. But let's start here. There's two sides to every coin, every story, right? The one side is a lot of entrepreneurs I've seen cripple their businesses, cripple their potential for growth, close their eyes to opportunity because they are locked in a mindset that funding is the only thing that gets me out of the situation that I find myself. And don't recognize that for every business, there's always creative ways that you can use to grow. If you are coming to me and saying you need funding, for example, my goal, if it's a loan, is to make sure I'm responsible with who I give that money to, right? Which means I'm going to need a certain level of evidence and proof that you are the right person. Your business is not going to collapse after you get that money. You're the kind of person that if I give that money, you will pay back. So I'm going to check for that kind of evidence.
Collateral.
Right? It could be collateral, but I'm more on proof of concept. Does your business really work? And do you have anything that you're doing that shows me that you'll pay back the money, right? So most people don't do the first part there. Proof of concept, proving that your business works. Making sure you prove that whether or not I need this funding, yes. But whether or not you fund me, I've got step 2 and 3 that I'm still going to execute and be growing while I wait for you to recognize that I truly deserve this money to grow. And then they pause and the business is stuck. And they keep looking and waiting for the resources that are going to help the business operate and not think outside of the box to say, if I don't get the funding from these guys, what's my option? When I talk about funding, there are many ways to get funding. You talked about loans, which is the one many get locked onto. But the best source of funding is raising finance through operating cash, which is raising money through your customers.
Okay.
When you get deposits from your customers, what's that? It's funding, right? Because they've practically given you money to execute. And then you can execute your job, get paid later. The difference. So when you labors, others use labors, that to them, that's funding. But they're raising finance through customers. Some can run massive campaigns on promos and stuff to what? Pull cash flow, sell loss leaders, anything that brings cash flow to the business. Then
Sell?
Loss leaders. Ooh, jargon.
Another
a lot of. All right.
I just want to make sure that nobody gets lost in this conversation. So I'm thinking if I didn't get that, potentially somebody else didn't. So maybe
it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Get into it.
Do that to me every time. Because I might forget. So I might take things for granted.
Yeah.
So if I sell this book and water, and I know that people here love water, right? I could sell, maybe the water cost me 10 rands. I could sell the water at 10 rands. Maybe I've run out of cash and promote the water at 10 rand. It's what it's costing me, right? But all I want is to have 100 rand so that I do marketing and pay salaries and stuff so that I then sell the other one. This becomes the loss leader.
I see.
Products that I run promotions on, I'm not really too concerned about how much profit I'll make, but I'm doing the promo for cash flow.
To reach a certain target.
Yeah. Cash flow. But the only reason why it can work if I do it that way is I've got something else to sell. And I'll make my profit off this. So if you come and you get water, I know I'm good at selling the book as well. You can see on a billboard that there's a promo. It's meal, it's sugar, it's cooking oil. In a particular community, the billboards change.
Yes.
But when you see that billboard, you'll see, oh yes, the meal genuinely is cheap. And now we love our pub. And then you go. But once you are there, even if it was cheap, even if it was at a loss, they know pub is not the only thing you're coming for, right? You're going to buy milk, eggs, chips,
gravy.
Snacks.
Yeah.
Then they make their profit off these. So for a business,
I understand that.
The loss leaders is understanding that I've got these 10 products. Which one brings the traffic? Then I can play around this one. I could make a slight loss to bring cash flow, to bring the crowd to my shop. So all of these are creative ways to raise finance and finance growth in your business and finance operations. Another source outside of customers and being creative with your marketing, managing cash flow this way. Actually, another one is collecting from people who owe you. You'll be shocked how many entrepreneurs I walk and talk to and say, who owes you? And we look at their debtors. And we see so many people that owe them, some 1 year old debts, people that never paid. And they're not having any strategy, any system to collect that money.
What strategies can they put in place though to do that? Are you just going to knock in people's places and knock them down? Give me my money. Or
that's actually one way. I'm telling you.
I'm pretty sure there's
it is probably the best way.
Oh, wow.
Because the simple question that I then ask is, when is the last time you called this person and you realize it's been a year since they called that person?
They've actually given up.
And sometimes it takes a phone call and an email and the person say, oh, I've forgotten. I am so sorry. And they start paying. Sometimes is calling and asking what's going on. Are you going through a challenge? Can we work out a plan? And you and the person agree on a plan and they start paying. Right? Or what's going on? When can you commit to make the first payment? But basically, going to people who owe you and talking to them.
Don't leave your money lying around.
Don't leave the money lying around.
Okay, Coach, you have touched on creative ways of raising finance, using your customers, doing your research. One of the shall I say, entrepreneurial rights that our entrepreneurs have indicated they are having a challenge with, right, is regulations and red tape. Um, our agency becoming what it is now, the Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency, is a way for government to respond to that red tape issue, right? In that the two agencies that were doing non-financial and financial have now merged. And the idea is to provide a one-stop kind of place for entrepreneurs to get services. But in addition to that, your experience, your insights, how do entrepreneurs, navigate that space? How do they navigate that compliance space? How do they navigate red tape? How do they get their houses in order such that they can check the T's and dot the I's?
All right. So again, the two sides. The one is there are entrepreneurs that get it right. There are entrepreneurs that actually access the funding. I know one that has been funded by 4 departments, and we're talking in the millions. What they say is, if I, because I had to ask her and say, how do you keep doing this?
Yeah.
She says most of the entrepreneurs that are applying get discouraged by filling forms. They don't like filling forms. That's why there's just few of us who will get through that 10-page form and submit it. Most of the people who compete with for any funding, they'll get discouraged by just the form and not get through it. So there's entrepreneurs that don't get discouraged by the forms, don't get discouraged by the fact that they need business plan, they need to have this certificate, this health and safety, this compliance with tax and stuff. It doesn't discourage them because they understand the fact that once you comply with this department, you automatically going to comply with the next one.
Yeah.
Which is the same when you're selling, right?
Yeah.
If I want to sell to food lovers, they're going to tell me that this is the checklist of requirements that we have.
Yeah.
Sounds and feels like red tape because it's going to have quality management systems and all of the things that you probably don't have the first time you engage with them.
Yeah.
But depending on your attitude, some people look at that and say, this is like a free coaching program. It means I can go and fix these things in my business and then they'll consider me. What then happens is they'll take that, go fix those things in their business, come back a year later, 6 months later, and say, this is where I am right now. They might say, add this, fix this, this is not up to standard. And again, they don't get discouraged, they fix it. But also, they learn the lesson that once I comply with these guys, or once I'm even close to complying, if I move from foot lovers to checkers or checkers to boxer to whoever, applying to just asking to be a supplier.
Yeah.
The requirements are not the same. The level of strictness is not the same. Someone will look at how far I've come and say, wow, we've been looking for people like you who have come this far. We can see you're serious. Someone will also look at and say, we can see the effort. Come, let's plug you in. We'll help you fill in the gaps. Right? It doesn't discourage them to look at the red tape. Then there's the other side where the red tape, there's arguments that can be had at a level above us entrepreneurs. That's why we need the government to protect entrepreneurs, where you start to look at the system and how things work nationally and say, okay, how do we fix things to make life easy for our entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
That's a conversation above us.
For sure.
Which we can't control. But the conversation you can control is, if this is the red tape, what does it mean for me? Right? If these are the requirements, what does it mean for me?
Yeah.
The challenge I then pose is, don't get discouraged by it. Figure it out, because it's an advantage to you to figure it out.
Yes. I like this word. You've used it many, many times. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
How do we cultivate that mindset that, look, this is public money. We are talking about, there's the Public Finance Management Act that must be adhered to. We can't just take 5 rand and give it to you as though we don't need to account for this money. How do we turn that mindset to say exactly what you're saying, that don't look at it as a, oh, I have to do all of this, but as a, this is an opportunity for me to level up.
It's an opportunity to level up. Look, attitude is a choice. You always choose how your attitude in any circumstance, right? You really have the power to choose. But for many people, if you're looking at the red tape, I think what has helped me is if it's worth it, it doesn't really have to be easy. And if it's easy, there's going to be too much competition anyway, which
That
means
part.
the likelihood of being missed is high. So I actually want it to be difficult so that instead of 10,000 of us applying, there's like 300 of us. Then I have a chance, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it's difficult means it's an opportunity for you if you figure it out.
Yeah.
And what some people have done, I've been impressed with some guys that started side hustles, and you'll be shocked what the side hustles were. One was to register businesses, and he was making at some point 20,000-30,000.
In what year is this?
About 4 years or so ago. He stopped because he moved into other things.
I see.
But when he was making that money, he was saying, I just realized people are just scared to fill forms and research what it costs to do this. And he was charging 1.5. I'm telling you.
Something that an entrepreneur can sit and apply.
You can literally go to Google and check. And they didn't realize that some of the applications he can start and finish on his phone. The other thing he was doing was charging a percentage to apply for NPOs, to apply at the lottos and stuff. Their funding. And you charge a percentage of that. Got a lot of money through that because he said, what? They don't like forms.
He made a business out of red tape.
Out of the red tape, he made a business because he realized if I can get it right with one, now I know how it's done. So I'm going to sell the service to another person. So to him, he actually wants it to be difficult so that everyone else runs away from the form. And then he starts charging people to fill the form and do the application. He doesn't say, I'm charging you to fill the form. He says, I'm charging you to apply for this money.
Yes.
It sounds different.
Yeah.
And you can charge different.
So there are ways to navigate the red tape. We acknowledge its existence.
Yeah. Acknowledge its existence. But part of the discouragement comes from other places as well. It comes from what we see on the news, corruption. When you see a lot of because we believe we have a right to fair treatment when we apply for tenders and stuff, to not be discriminated upon and to just have a fair chance.
That right to trade.
Exactly. And once you see that being infringed upon by people who seem to just get access to the jobs ahead of you, even if they apply late, you know what I'm talking about on the news. That can be discouraging. And that one is a harder one. No matter if you can come with all the positivity you want. I've felt it. I've lost a job as well in that way. Yeah. You can be the most positive person, but it hurts.
But at some point you process the hurt?
Yes, which is where I'm getting at. The processing the hurt.
Yeah.
Because I had to ask myself, so what does it mean? And when I was talking to some people, they said, look, when you're focusing on tenders and bids and stuff, most people, 80% of people will be tied to just government projects and not realize that tenders are not only in government. There's actually a lot more tenders in corporate than there in government. That became the argument. So when you start to look at it, you start to realize, maybe the process is simpler outside in corporate and there are opportunities that I haven't been looking at. And it's not always going to be unfair. That becomes another conversation that at our level, we can encourage each other to say, continue, keep looking. You're going to find areas where they'll still take you, right?
Yeah.
But at a level above us, we then appeal to those in authority to say, please look into this. Because it's discouraging entrepreneurs.
I mean, I know red tape is, I've already mentioned the merger, right? And I was also reading that the issue sits at the highest office within the presidency, where there's a red tape reduction team. part of the agencies merging, there's also going to be an ombudsman that's aimed at assisting MSMEs to kind of, late payments and those kind of things. So I hear you, but I also think that there is, at a high level, we have seen evidence of some work being done. But I do acknowledge that,
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
There's conversations that need to happen.
For sure.
Above us.
For sure. Okay, so that was red tape, right?
Yeah.
Another issue that our entrepreneurs have mentioned is limited market access. People are sitting wherever they are, Sikukuni, KZN, wherever, and they're making all these beautiful things. But how do they then get these products to not just their immediate environment? How do they get these products out there?
He reminded me of a traumatized entrepreneur. So for them, we talk access to markets, but for them, it was this violation of access to safety.
Okay.
Because they are in a community where there's extortion.
Extortion?
Yes, gangs that say we need protection fees. You haven't heard? You look.
No, I have. I want you to sort of like elaborate in this context. I know of the construction market.
So it is, you're in a market and you feel like there's demand, but you get discouraged by the fact that no matter how well you seem to be doing, the mafia seems to be taking quite a big chunk of those profits.
Yeah.
Access to market outside of this concept of safety is, I don't believe I've got enough people to sell to. I don't believe I can access a certain platform that's going to take a lot of my product in bulk, right? Which means I'm selling locally and I'm struggling to find a retailer that's going to take my product and sell it in a mass scale. Typically, that's where the trap is for many people. But for many people that are there saying they can't access their market, there is the truth in that there are market sectors that are fairly difficult to crack, fairly difficult to break into. They are there, that exist. And that's something, another conversation above us. Authorities have to check in terms of statistics, what's happening on the ground. Are people accessing opportunities equally? And then have the discussion there. But I'm going to come down to our level so that it's helpful to an entrepreneur.
For sure.
Right? Because we can't have a conversation to say, hey, please do this, fix this. That's not going to help us. What we can control, which is when you look at your business and I start asking questions around what is your strategy when it comes to approaching these corporates that you want to access, right? Do you have the marketing and branding assets that can get you there and have them take you seriously? Do you have the traction in your business that shows that this product works? Do you have the testimonials and social proofs and clients saying, my God, this is an amazing product? Do you have those fundamentals that are needed for anyone? If let's assume there was no red tape, do you have the foundation that if we look at, we can believe that your business truly works and has earned the right to get that market? For many people, we rush to the blame game and the complaining game and not look under the hood and see that we haven't even done what we should be doing.
Our due diligence.
We focused on having an amazing product and it's there, but we don't have the systems, we don't have the structures, we don't have the branding. We've got the product and the product is there. And because we all love our products, right? Because you've fallen in love with it. You don't recognize the fact that you haven't done enough of your homework to fix your house, get your house in order and ready to operate at that scale. And sometimes when people evaluate your business, if you come and say, I want to supply here, I'll take your documents. I'm not the decision maker. The decision maker is a committee somewhere, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And by the time that committee is making a decision, you're not there. They're using what? The stuff you submitted.
Yeah.
If that is not sufficient to tell a story that's enticing, you're not there to defend yourself.
Yeah.
They'll just look at it. The other thing is, when they're looking at this, they're looking at 100 other forms like yours. Much like someone who's analyzing CVs for people who are applying for a job. If there are 10 that look neat and amazing and are colorful and all of the, they are going to get attention. We're human, right?
Yeah.
They stand out. Out of the 300 or 500 that are on your table,
Yeah.
is what you're submitting standing out? We're not doing that homework enough.
Yeah.
If people then decide, let's Google and check the traction for the business, are you Googleable and stuff?
Yeah. How do you show up online?
How do you show up? And we realize you haven't done that part. And then it becomes hard for you to be taken seriously in a more competitive area,
Yeah.
above your level of operation.
Yeah.
So we come back and solve what we can solve. When it comes to then presenting and approaching corporate, have you done your homework to understand how to write an effective proposal? How to pitch when they call you and say, come and present your product to us. Sometimes you realize you haven't even done that part. And even if they call you and it's time to present and pitch your product, you fumble at that.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a problem again.
Yeah.
And because we like to justify things and then make ourselves feel good, we don't take
Coach with the hard truths.
Hey, look, it's like if someone goes and shell as a woman, let's say he shell as a woman and she says no, he's not gonna come and tell us gents and say, she says no, you look shady, bro, right? He's gonna have a nice story to tell. Say, she said no because she's not ready. She's going through something. It's not the right time for. The story will be nicer, and the feedback that he got. Why? Because he needs to say a narrative that makes him feel good about the rejection. And sometimes we don't realize that we do that often. Habitually say a narrative that makes us feel better about the rejection, which is a lie. And the more you tell a lie, you believe your own lie, and you don't realize you're crippling yourself. Yeah. You stop trying to go to the next corporate because of a lie that you taught yourself and believed. Yeah.
So accessing to markets, the lesson here for entrepreneurs is you can play an active role in getting your product out there by making sure that you get your house in order.
Yes. So test the market, prove that your product works, get the social proof, right? As much evidence as you can to say my product really works. If I come and say, guys, I'm selling this product, it's a perfume or whatever the product is. I started 3 years ago selling off the boot of my cars, making 5,000 rands a month. A year later, 1,000 customers later, and they're loyal. We are making about 50,000 rands a month, right? And now we are on 300,000 a month.
Yeah.
Same product, great products, and great customer reviews and feedbacks. You can check them here.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, based on the feedback, when we started, we were making it this way. But based on the feedback over time, we've improved. We made this improvement. We've changed this. We've added this. We're now complying with this. That's traction. That's social proof.
Yeah.
And that's a story that you can tell to a corporate to say, maybe let's consider launching this product and testing this product in one of our stores.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. To say, put a lot more of the responsibility on yourself to prove that there is a market for your product.
Yeah.
Other people to believe your product works without you having the evidence.
Yeah.
So document the evidence and then present your story. If you're feeling like I have the evidence, I'm presenting the story, it's not selling. Sometimes we have a blind spot to why things are not working. That's why you need to find a mentor, a coach, or someone who is experienced in penetrating and getting products to corporates or to market and ask them, this is how I'm presenting this. What am I getting wrong? Then they will tell you. Sometimes you might have the one opportunity that would have worked for you. You walk into the office and you find the person that you talk to having a bad day. Right? Yeah, people are human.
Yes, absolutely.
You assume when you're going to pitch your product that you're going to talk to someone who's always motivated, always excited to see you, right? Because in your head, you're telling yourself that they're having a bad day. They don't give you recognition. They don't acknowledge your product. And they just brush you off.
Yeah.
For you, it's the whole corporate organization that rejected you in that way. It's not the individual that was having a bad day. You never followed up.
Yeah.
But if you then engage other people and get help, you get perspective and say, no, try again, find out what was wrong, what you can improve, and you go and have the conversation on a different day.
Yeah.
Or you go and have the conversation with someone else. Or you go and start with another organization, get the traction with them, and then go back and say, by the way, we're also now working with those guys.
Yeah. As you were outlining your answer, two things popped to mind. The Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency has a pitch for funding program in which entrepreneurs are, taken through the steps on how to pitch their businesses so that, if you walk into a room and you have to immediately speak about your business, you can touch on, the key points. Sedfa also has a dedicated export development program, wherein there's a dedicated team that takes entrepreneurs. I've seen entrepreneurs go to Dubai, Morocco. I've seen entrepreneurs go to Cape Town, and there's also the standard pop-ups that Sedfa conducts all across the country. So there's also those interventions at the Small Enterprise Development Agency. I wanna
wait. This is deep. This is important. When is the next international trip? And who do you need?
I mean, we constantly publish about those opportunities on our social media platforms. So maybe this is an opportunity for me to plug our platforms. On YouTube. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We recently opened on TikTok. I'm very excited about that. So yes, we constantly, every time there's an opportunity within the organization, we publish it on our social media platforms. I have to wrap up this conversation. Yes, there's actually a few more things that we could have gone into. Coach, in wrapping up this conversation, perhaps some nuggets for our entrepreneurs, right? We started by saying, okay, you're an entrepreneur out there. You've got some challenges with exercising your entrepreneurial rights. You've got some challenges with access to funding. You've got challenges with market access to markets and what are your nuggets as a takeaway for our entrepreneurs, given all this experience that you have, having dealt with so many entrepreneurs? What are your nuggets?
The main thing that I would say, outside of let's be more accountable, let's take a lot more of the responsibility of the growth of our business, right? And not put it on someone else. In case someone else doesn't believe in your dream. It's your dream. So drive it as much as you can. But the main thing that I'll say is if there are things that you start to see that are wrong in the system, that are not working well in the system, one of the rights that you have is you have a voice. You can go and ask when you lose a tender why you lost a tender. You have the right to do that, right? And that's going to build you. You can go and write and ask with the corporate why you're not getting in, and they'll give you where you're falling short.
What are you doing wrong?
That can build you. But the voice, use it to find platforms where you can report, because there's platforms where you can report when you see that there's issues out there. There's a quote, I'll leave you with this one. There's a quote, I forgot the name of this lady, but it's a powerful quote. It says, if you're silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it. If you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. It talks about those that suffer in silence and stay in with the abuser in this instance. That you'll continue getting the abuse until you die, and the abuser can equally then say they were enjoying it.
Yeah.
Don't be silent about your pain. If you're discouraged because you've been applying with Sedfa, with whoever you've been applying for and it's not working, you're trying to penetrate a market, it's not working. Don't sit there and cry alone and don't endure the pain alone. Talk to people, right? Reach out to organizations, reach out to mentors and get people who have accessed those opportunities and find out what they did differently.
This is the part where you plug yourself as a coach.
Call me. And tell me when you're taking me to Dubai. But yeah,
Thank you so much, Coach. I know that part of our approach to this episode was that we were going to answer some questions from our online audience. But when we looked at our Facebook post that specifically asked our audience, what challenges are you dealing with? We found that a lot of the things that they're outlining is they fit into the already kind of predetermined answers that we got into with the coach. So please don't feel like really postile and we answered and we didn't get our feedback. I believe that we covered a lot of that in the conversation with Coach. Thank you so much, Coach Ntando, for your time. I hope that entrepreneurs that have watched this conversation are going to walk away with some actionable advice around what to do in exercising their entrepreneurial rights. It's clear that entrepreneurs have the right to do business in this country. It's guaranteed in our constitution. But we've also observed that they do experience challenges, right? But also there are solutions. We are seeing financing initiatives that are very targeted, like TRAP, like the Youth Challenge Fund. We're also seeing policy reforms. I also mentioned that, the very merger of this organization is the department's way of streamlining our services as an agency, and also technology. I wish we had the chance to dive a little bit more into it, but definitely technology can play a role in helping entrepreneurs get out there. Social media, I'm very passionate about social media, so I'm just going to leave it here for now before I end up ranting. If this conversation was informative for you, make sure that you share it with another entrepreneur. Make sure that you subscribe to our platform. And that's it for our Human Rights podcast. And see you next month, Freedom Month, April. Thank you. Ke nna Molatelo wa Ramothwala.